Hello everyone, I hope you're having a fantastic day. Cecilia here, and I'm all about inspiring you with art, helping you to improve your painting skills, and unlocking your creativity. If you're new to this channel, consider subscribing. So today's video is about the second painting in the row of the 4 seasons or the 4 elements. Again, it's gonna be a small painting like 12 by 30 centimeters. Last week I did a tutorial about how to paint a winter landscape, and today we're going to create a really nice green and earthy forest scenery with lots of trees and leaves, with a ruin and some animals. So yeah, I would say let's dive right into it. I already sketched a little bit in order to know the scenery and the objects that I want to have within the painting. You can do that as well, or you can start by painting right onto the canvas. We begin with the underpainting in acrylics. The colors are simply black, white, permanent magenta, light and dark green, as well as lemon yellow. But they don't have too much fully because we go over it with oils. First, we paint the background with a light yellow, for which we mix yellow and white, and we paint a little bit more than the half of the painting. Then we create ruins on the left side. In order to have the right proportions, we need a vanishing point. I choose the one right behind the deer because I want it to be the focal point. From there we paint lines really discreetly, and by doing that we know how to paint the ruins because the upper and lower edge follow that line. And the deer at the right side gets an orange-brown color. You don't need to paint the face, we do that afterwards with oils. You can simply mix orange with a little bit of blue or black and you get that color. And then we also paint some trees according to the same lines, and the ones that are in the foreground are darker, so we use a dark brown. You can just mix magenta with green and you get a brownish color. And the trees in the background we make brighter and of course also thinner, so we add white to the brown. Afterwards we use different green tones, so I would desaturate them by adding a little bit magenta, then you'll get a nice olive green color. I really like that. But just choose the color you like the most. And we basically fill up the forest floor and we paint some background areas as well to have a bunch of leaves there. And also the same principles applies to the leaves. The ones that are further away are brighter than the ones that are right in the front. So coming to the first layer in oils. Here we focus mainly on the right color tones and an opaque layer that will be more detailed. We use the colors zinc or titanium white, lemon yellow, cadmium yellow, pale hue, phthalo green yellow shade, raw sienna, raw umber, and ivory black. Normally, I would start with the background and then paint the objects in the foreground, but I love ruins, so we start with that. And then just paint around them, that's okay. So for the ruins we mix 2 shades, a bright and a dark one. For the bright color we mix white, raw sienna, raw umber and black. For the dark shade we use basically the same colors but less white. So you can see the difference. We paint the border a little bit darker, the inside of the stone arc as well, and the sides of the ruins, and some random little spots just to get a nice irregular pattern. And then we paint the other areas with the brighter tone and create a smooth transition between those 2 shades. Then we paint the trees in the foreground, already with a light and shadow gradient. We mix a dark brown by using raw umber and black. The light is coming from the left side, right behind the ruins, so we paint the shadow accordingly. The trees at the right side have the shadow on the right side, and the trees on the left side have the shadow on their left side. We also add a little bit of structure to the tree trunks in the front and go more into details with the second layer. For the trees that are further away, we use the same color but add white and raw sienna to make them brighter. After that, we mix zinc white with a tad lemon yellow and paint the brightest spots in the background, where the sun is shining through the leaves and branches. For the leaves in the background, we mix different green tones. We start with a bright yellowish green, for which we mix white, cadmium yellow pale hue, green and raw sienna. For the midtone, we use green, raw sienna and a little bit of raw umber, white and yellow. And for the darkest green, we simply mix green, black and raw umber. Then we paint around the bright spots we created before with the yellowish green and blend these colors nicely. The darkest green we use primarily at the right side and then blend the edges with the medium green. For the deer, we use raw sienna and a little bit of permanent rose, and then we paint just an opaque layer and the details with the second layer. Coming to the end of this layer, we paint the forest floor and start with the shadow, for which we use the darkest green shade. And we paint it sloping backwards toward the right side because, again, the sun is shining from the left side. And yeah, for the other areas, we alternate between the mid and light green and paint also some really bright spots, like where the light hits the ground directly. Now we come to the second layer in oils, which is all about the details. We use the same color as we did before and focus primarily on the details, transitions and just the final touches to create a beautiful unified composition. I would wait for 1 or 2 days until the surface is dry to touch before moving on with this layer. We begin with the ruins, more precisely with the stone arc. We paint first a line which is the outer edge, also 2 lines within that are ornaments, and then each stone. After that, we paint all the other stones, and really this process takes more time, but I think it is so worth it, because the final result simply looks amazing. So we use the dark color of the ruins and paint different stones. Like you want to have structured rows for the walls, but also some irregular shaped stones just to make it look more realistically. And then, when we laid out all these dark lines, we use the bright stone color of the ruins that we used before, fill the insides and blend these areas with the darker lines. And then we can also elaborate more details by adding some little bright and dark spots here and there with a really tiny brush. After that, I focused on the background and used different brushes for painting the leaves. But to be honest, I didn't like how it turned out, and that's why I painted over it afterwards. And yeah, I would say we skip this step and come back to it later. Instead, we concentrate on the tree trunks in the foreground. Once you get the hang of it, it is actually pretty simple to make an awesome tree trunk. We use the same colors and just work out more details. So we set the shadows first and blend it with the midtone color. Then we make kind of a rough bark by using a lighter brown and a tiny brush, and we just paint different little strokes all over the trunk, but we pay attention to the different light and shadow parts. So the strokes that are in the light area are obviously brighter than the ones in the shadow area. And to bring more irregularity to the trunk, we can also paint with the shadow color some little dark spots here and there. And yeah, we use this method for all these 3 tree trunks in the front. We don't add this much details to the other ones in the background in order to have contrast within the painting. And actually it makes sense, right? The further away something is, the more blurred it gets. So we only paint the big light and shadow areas. After that, we paint the leaves in the fore and background. The ones in the front are dark green, for which we use a round brush, roughly the size 5. It should be rather small, and we paint some repetitive strokes, especially on the right and on the left side, and also a few at the top of the painting. Then we blend the other areas with the yellowish white and yellowish green. And also we paint some really light and thin lines that represent the tree trunks far away. And with the mid-tone green, we paint some smaller repetitive dots, which are the bushes and leaves further away. For the ground we use basically the same method, but this area is overall darker, so we use the dark green for the right and left side as well as the shadow areas, and blend them with the mid-tone green and yellowish green for the very bright areas. And we use brown for the path to the stone arc that should represent some rotten leaves. And yeah, then we paint some plants and stones in the very front and put some dots here and there in the other areas. Finally, the deer takes shape, gets some details and a face. And I also think it's nice to paint 2 ravens sitting on a ruin and a black bird on a branch. So yeah, that's it, a short tutorial about how to paint a forest scene. I hope this video was helpful to you, give it a thumbs up if you liked it, and also let me know in the comments below if you still have questions about it, or if you want to go more in depth and take a look at some steps more precisely. Thank you so much for joining me, I appreciate all of you, and I wish you a wonderful day. Until next time!